You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
That'll read a script. Script reads me.
Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the troubleshooting and irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Yo, we trade actors, motherfucker.
Good morning on the West Coast, and good afternoon again. Hey, welcome to the new. I'm your host, Randy Perm, and we have some breaking news for you today. Vice President Kamala Harris has decided to show up to the southern border in Texas, although 1,000 miles away from where the crisis is going on in the Rio Grande area. But nonetheless, she's in Texas currently at a border. So I commend former President Donald Trump for making Kamala Harris, Vice President type, go to the border. Congratulations. It took only 93 days, but hey, nonetheless, she's there to assess something. Not sure what. But anywho, happy Friday to you all. Red Friday, as always. Remember, everyone deployed Fridays. Well, we take this time to thank our men and women who are serving our nation across the world, away from their homes, comforts of their beds, and away from any madness that they may have been otherwise enduring. We salute you and we thank you for your service, sacrifice, and commitments to keeping our freedoms, liberties, and our way of life intact. So, this week, it's been pretty busy, actually. Pretty busy this week. A lot of unexpected chaos. I'll just put it that way. That's been going on this week around the house and with the children that are adults. But nonetheless, we got through it, and yeah. I hope you all are doing well. And this week also, I think it was yesterday. I've been getting like stacks of mail coming out of the DC arena from these different, I guess you could say, nonprofits and other organizations, individuals requested donations for various causes and campaigns and everything. And I just, I get it, tear it up, throw it in the trash. And so yesterday I had an epiphany. I said, you know what? I am going to write them back and request donations from them. And so I take their this is an example. I take their return envelope. Of course, you got to put a postage on it. So I put a postage on it, and I have a pre-done up. I typed up a letter, and I signed it, and throw in, one of my business cards with my website stuff on there, and I mailed it back. I did 5 of them yesterday, so let's see what happens. I may get some checks in the mail. I might get a phone call or an email cussing me out. Who knows? But I call it just strategic marketing or strategic reverse marketing. But also this week I engaged in some Twitter beef with an unknown individual. I don't even know who he is. He made a comment on one of my friends' Twitter repost, and from there we just kind of went back and forth all week long, and it was kind of fun. He was an idiot, but I had fun with that. And speaking of Twitter beefs, Candace Owens and Kimberly Klacik apparently has some Twitter beef going on right now that spilled over to Instagram this past week. I think it's kind of squashed now, but nonetheless, two very prominent conservative black females getting into a spat over Juneteenth, celebrating Juneteenth and celebrating the 4th of July. To me, it's a whatever. I don't care. I don't even know why there was thousands of comments and reshares and everything else over something that silly, and just, I don't know. But this is this is the world of entertainment that we're in the 21st century. So it is what it is. But anywho, today we're going to discuss the where we are as a nation. We're seeing a lot of strange things happening, and I wouldn't even say so much. I wouldn't even call it strange. It's just abnormal things that are going on in our country right now that kind of makes you want to take pause and examine the undercurrent and peel back the onion as to the causations and the causal effects of what's going on in our country right now. And with that, it's kind of centered more so around the black community, because there's that old saying, the squeakiest wheel gets the oil. And so there's this concerted effort and concerted focus on the black community right now across America, with Black Lives Matter, with voting laws, which, by the way, the Justice Department today has announced that they're going to be filing a lawsuit in Georgia against Georgia for their voting law, saying that it is targeting black people. Folks, I am not here to beat a dead horse on that issue, but once again, okay. But there's this concerted effort to focus on the black community with various issues, as if these same issues don't affect everyone else in other ethnic groups and other backgrounds. And I said this before. I said if I was like, I don't know, if I was Samoan, Hawaiian, Asian, Native American, I would be upset. I would be jealous. I'd be like, hello, hey, what about us? It ain't just only just black people. Black people only make up 13% of the country. But hey, okay, whatever. But anywho, there's this video I would like to show you all that I thought, was like, man, this is a excellent, well put together video that was done by the Heritage Foundation, one of my favorite organizations, think tank groups. And I ran across it yesterday, and I said, wow, this is really, really good. And it's going to be a segue into what I'm going to discuss in this first segment. So here it is.
There are those who claim America's true founding was in the year 1619, when African slaves were forced across the Middle Passage to come to the New World. They claim that America is rooted in oppression and racism. These are the claims of the 1619 Project. But the true founding of America happened in 1776. when a group of rebels fought for independence from the British and built America with one idea in mind: freedom for all. Our founding fathers saw the future, a world without slavery. But America did not start out this way, as some were not free. Sadly for America, some refused to embrace the idea of freedom for all. They thwarted laws prohibiting the importation of slaves, laws intended to end slavery in America once and for all, and would have certainly preserved the barbaric institution of slavery forever. A civil war was declared. Over 300,000 white men fought alongside 36,000 of their black brothers, and all made the ultimate sacrifice, giving their lives to end slavery. Proponents of the 1619 Project refused to acknowledge this history. After the Civil War, America remained a divided nation, flawed, but now free to all. Reconstruction laid the framework for what many blacks might have considered an unimaginable future, and it began with over 15,000 blacks being elected to office. By the turn of the 20th century, America began to experience an awakening as black culture was sewn in the fabric of the nation. The lines began to blur between black and white. Black culture slowly infused with American culture. Still, the struggle continued. Hate groups like the KKK continued oppressing blacks. Laws were passed to prevent blacks from gaining the true American dream. Undaunted, America marched steadfastly toward its great vision, a vision enshrined in the nation's Constitution.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
The dream, mentioned by Reverend King, would eventually be embraced by all. The entire country lauded sports legends like Jesse Owens and Joe Louis to destroy the idea of Hitler's white nationalism. Many other blacks destroyed racist and bigoted stereotypes as black engineers, scientists, doctors, judges, scholars, authors, playwrights, poets, and entertainers became mainstream to the American culture. Why would anyone want to destroy such a legacy? A legacy of overcoming adversity to form one nation under God, one unhyphenated America.
That was pretty good. Wouldn't you agree? But that, like I said, it's a segue into what I want to kind of discuss that's pretty important. And it stems from a conversation that took place last year, actually. But I'm not going to say I finally got around to it, but I watched the debate, the discussion yesterday. And I I only took a segment of it because it's an hour long, and I'm only here for an hour. But the debate was between Dr. John McWhorter and Dr. Leslie Harris, and this particular discussion was generally around 1619 versus 1776. Now, proponents of history are railing and fighting against, pushing back against critical race theory and the 1619 project because of the distortion of history and what have you. Now, this discussion kind of is more around teaching 1619 and critical race theory to an extent based on the ideology of what if isms and what are the possibilities if we don't consider it or take these possibilities into consideration in the construct of the founding of America being based on slavery. Anyways, so great discussion, but this particular segment I'm about to show you is highlighting something that is truly, truly problematic, not only in America, but it's around the world with our youth, particularly, but more so, I would speak to this and apply this to the adults in society today, particularly and more poignantly to America when it comes to history, understanding different aspects of history, different types of history. Um, every time, like for example, on social media, for example, you'll see a post and there's always commentary. How come this is not taught in school? Or how come we're just now knowing about this? We saw this very much during the Juneteenth, last year when Juneteenth was being brought up initially, or a couple years ago. And we see this a lot with a lot of, I'm not gonna say austere or obscure historical events, but you'll see that pop up here and there. And it's like, well, just because you didn't know about it doesn't mean it wasn't taught. Apparently it was taught. Apparently people know about it if it exists in the public purview of being displayed, being taught, being talked about, and what have you. Just because you particularly did not understand it or know about it doesn't mean that no one else did. And so we have this bad habit of bandwagon jumping onto these issues, or onto these I guess you could say issues, these things, and it paints a picture of ignorance, where you're saying that this is not taught in school, but here it is, you're reposting it from some kind of educational institution. So it just, I don't know. But anyways, I'm gonna say this is not a long video, but it's about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna shut up so y'all can take a look.
You would address the same matter, whether today's young people are being taught a narrative that ought to be augmented by things like the 1619 Project, or whether it is the main narrative, and perhaps also, by extension, how we decide how much we should focus on the positive versus the negative parts of our history, stipulating that we want to teach people the whole truth. How do you decide how much of each thing to teach?
The idea that we must teach a fundamentally positive narrative strikes me as somebody who watched too much 1950s TV. I do not agree with that at all. I think that, talk about what it is to engage social history, to intelligently engage it, and to be a country that is perhaps a step ahead of the official narrative that many countries promote for themselves, is to acknowledge that a lot of things have gone hideously wrong and that they continue to. The idea is not for our history to be a celebration as if we were in, some movie in 1930, by no means. But on the other hand, I hear what Professor Harris is saying, and I don't mean to remotely imply that she is not being completely sincere. I understand what she means. That is what she has seen, and what she has seen carries considerable authority, especially as a historian. But I can't say that it squares with what I've seen, and I can't claim to be a historian in any official sense, but I teach in universities, and I know people who are under 18. It seems to me that the idea that slavery is something obscure to a critical mass of people squares more with the way things were in the 70s and into the 80s than they are now. And I just think of what we see in Hollywood, what we see celebrated by the intelligentsia and long before the 1619 Project. All sorts of things that are going on in any large city at any particular time. There comes a point when I've often found myself wondering, at what point, for example, can we say that it's not an obscure fact that there was slavery outside of the South? I live in New York City, where there are museum exhibits and archaeological digs, and it's always said, no one knows about this. After about 20 years, I start to wonder, is it really true that no one knows, or is that just what you're supposed to say as an enlightened person in order to be symbolically part of a certain struggle? And Professor Harris, I don't mean that as any kind of dig, but I mean there's a certain kind of person where sometimes I think about that. And what it really comes down to is this. And here, I'm not being a contrarian on purpose. This is something that I truly believe. I'm not sure how informed we can either expect or need the general public to be beyond a certain point about any aspect of history. I mean, we always talk about how historically ignorant Americans are, and to be honest, I would extend that to human beings in general. Most people live in the present. That's the nature of being a human being. Now, you can seek to have people understand what happened in the past, and especially how it relates to the present. But sometimes it seems to me that we're claiming it as a fundamental assumption that we want all Americans who've been anywhere near a school to be able to do an intelligent recitation of what has happened to black people on these shores. And I don't mean an academic one, but I mean that even that they might be able to give a kind of an informal oral report over 10 minutes. One, I'm not sure that could ever happen because most of them couldn't give an informal oral report about when the Revolutionary War even was. We all know that. That's the nature of humanity, and Americans actually are human. And then also, I'm not sure why we need it. And by we here, I'm talking about black people. I'm not sure that in order for black people to overcome, all Americans need to understand what we've been through and exactly why there are the disparities today. I think there's a difference for me between politics in the present that creates a future and what sort of historically informed consciousness we're forging. And I genuinely, and I'm not putting this out as some sort of debate team point, I genuinely don't understand why the American public needs to be better informed about the history of black people than it is roughly now, with it being more with people who go to good schools than others, certainly. There's also the thing that we don't like to talk about as Americans. There's going to be a class dimension, too. But I'm not sure why we have to work so very, very hard at that, and to see there being such a yawning gap when people can't do the kind of recitation that I talked about. I don't think they ever will be, and you can say that that's partly racist, but I'm not sure whether that matters to poor black people who need help. So that is my real take on that question.
Yeah. Professor Harris, do you want to respond to that directly?
Yeah, I think, this is a larger question about how much education do we need in today's society. And one of the things that I look at is how complex our society is. And one of the ways that history can help us, thinking about history can help us, is it can sometimes be a practice ground for the complexities we experience in real time. But even more importantly, John's question about why do we need to know, I'm sure many of you know that the National Association of Scholars I think they have a grant. I was reading an article about it and they claim that only 15% of Americans know anything about, say, the Constitution, even our founding documents. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And it is a problem right now because we are trying to figure out, for example, what are the duties of our president, the Supreme Court, and Congress? And people are voting based on those ideas. People also vote based on their ideas of what is the meaning of race in America and how should we address that through our judicial system. They vote based on ideas, incorrect or not, about the role that African Americans have played in this country. There are people who think that African Americans, I think, did nothing to contribute to America. And so I think it's important to bring those things in. But there's a larger question here, too, about the meaning of education in an increasingly complex world. And we really, as a nation, need to reckon with the fact that we are the year 2020 has demonstrated that we need a more educated populace, not a less educated populace. And part of that education has to be an understanding of where we came from as a nation, what our ideals are, what happens when we fail, and everyone fails. This is not unique to the US, and how then we can overcome and continue. And those lessons are available in history and can provide some guidance if we're honest about that, as well as being available in the present. But working that historical muscle sometimes can give us a sense of how people can solve problems. One of the things that, for me, when I think about history and teaching my students is to let them know that historical actors were not perfect, even when they had these wonderful ideals. And so then how does historical change happen? We really need to have a realistic sense of, as John said, it is incremental. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people struggle. So what does that mean for me as an individual? What does that mean for us as a nation? What is the role of government in that? All of these things can be learned through a study of history as well as through our current experience. And we can then make informed choices about what we want to bring forward as opposed to what we want to leave behind. I just think it's part of education. It has been part of every society. We are unique, and John is right here. We are unique as a nation in our example as wanting to give education to all. That was not the case before fairly late into the 19th century. But we thought that, and we still think that, an informed citizenry is our best defense, I hope. An informed citizenry is our best defense for our national ideals. And to be informed means to know all so that we can move forward in a much better way.
Bring us back to.
So, not much else to add to that discussion, but it's a great, like I said, it's an hour-long discussion back and forth about history, about 1619 versus 1776, as I mentioned prior to this. And one thing that one thing we have to be real with ourselves with is our apathy to education and to history in general. And what I mean by our apathy is a lot of people, when you bring up the topic of history, or you say in reference to history, or let's look back at, people go, oh, here we go, and they're like, oh, that was the past, we need to move forward. That is all true. We do need to move forward, but there's a couple of sayings. In order to know where you're going, you need to know where you came from, and that's reference to history. You need to know the do's and don'ts of history. The repeating, Einstein said it, repeating the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. That stems from not knowing your history. And so, yeah, and the other caveat to that would be there was an old saying towards the end of slavery that when you put information in books, niggers won't read it. And that when I heard that, it was actually said to me when I was in high school, and like directly to me, like, y'all are so dumb, you got all this information, you have access to the library, you have access to this, but hey, for black people, you put information in books, niggas won't read it. And I was like, wow. But it was a black teacher that said it to us. So couldn't say, sorry, it wasn't a white person. It was a black person that said that to us as students, in the classroom. Because a lot of us at that time were not studious in class. We were not getting, the best grades out of those classrooms. And so, hearing that being said to you, something flips, in your mind. A switch comes on and says, you know what? I am not going to perpetuate that stereotype. I am going to prove that person wrong. Or I'm going to prove that stereotype wrong, and I am going to become, as smart as they are, or if not smarter. And so you kind of get self-motivated when you're told that you can't do something, or you're told that you're not going to amount to anything because of a perception or stereotype. So me personally, a point of personal privilege, I dug into books. I dug into videos, and I still do to this very day. I engage in these kind of conversations, these higher education thoughts of topics and what have you, because I don't want to be part of that stereotype where just another nigga don't know anything type of thing. So it's important. It's very important that we do know our history, and I will even extend that to talking to the black community. For those who are so pro-black and everything else, you make yourself look hypocritical, if not dumb, when you say you don't know something about your own history. When I say your own history, I mean African American history, black history, but you're so pro-black. You would think that you would know the ins and outs of every single aspect of our own history if you're so pro-black. That means that you spend every waking moment learning and knowing about every single thing in our culture. But many don't. But they're so pro-black. I have these discussions all the time with people. So, just something to ponder, something to think about. Folks, we'll be right back after this quick commercial.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Every adventure starts with a great cup of coffee.
That's what we're trying to do. We're fueling people to go do epic shit in life.
When I was roasting coffee 1 pound at a time in the back tailgate of a government truck, my service rifle was laying right there next to my 1 pound coffee roaster.
The symbology of Black Rifle Coffee, everybody went to a basic training, and during that process, they ended up shooting a black rifle.
When we think about the last 20 years of post 9/11 veteran experience, the one common piece of equipment that binds us all is the black rifle.
That was your service rifle, and that's kind of a tribute to our service and what we want to serve as the coffee company.
It goes all the way back from the genesis of the country in 1773. It was the Boston Tea Party. From that point forward, America made coffee a hot drink of choice. All the way back to the birth of America has been fueled by coffee. That's why it's so special. The musket all the way through to the M4, the two other things there are rifles, coffee, service, right? I think those are the things that connect a lot of different veterans throughout the generations. It's heritage, it's service, and so kind of the whole thing is like we're fueled by coffee, connected by service.
It stems from a value proposition or something that we absolutely believe in. That's what we're trying to do. We're fueling people to go do epic shit in life, but then we're all connected through this post-service or in-service aspect of raising a right hand and believing in, you know, the American dream and what it stands for to be an American. And for me, that's hyper unifying.
There's people who are constantly in harm's way serving our country, and we need to facilitate them getting coffee as a priority for what we're trying to do as a company.
This company is about the customer. The customers are the company. It's one big ecosystem, and we serve coffee to the same type of people that we are, so they're one and the same.
It's this constant drive to constantly be evolving what we're doing to give our customers a better coffee experience. Whether that's a new steep bag, instant coffee, or exclusive coffee that's from a different type of origin country. The same drive that puts people from basic training into the infantry, into a type of special operations capacity, it's this constant evolution of trying to better yourself. And that's exactly what we're doing when it comes to coffee, is offering better products on a regular cadence to have a better experience as a customer.
We have the mission to provide coffee and culture to people that love America.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Hey, welcome back. So, New York, they are, they're going through New York City, not the state, New York City. They're going through what I would say a paradigm shift in ideology. Um, I guess it's brought on with the height of, you know, defunding the police, socialist Democrat policies of not doing anything to criminals, letting them off the hook. Literally, that's what they were doing. Uh, Hundreds of people, hundreds of cases of rioters cases got thrown out because, you know, the attorney general was like, yeah, we're not trying to do all that work, so y'all just free to go. Wow. But anywho, so the mayoral race that's going on there right now took a turn of events that most people were not expecting. Andrew Yang dropped out of the race. I guess he was a bit too moderate, but then he kind of went extreme left, and people were just like, yeah, no, you're polarizing. You're good. And then there was Diane Morales and Maya Wiley. Now, interestingly, Maya Wiley and Diane Morales, they was kind of running neck to neck, and people thought that one of these two would emerge as the front runner to win the Democratic primary. But it turns out that Eric Eric Adams here, he's a former police officer, a police lieutenant in New York City, and a former Republican who switched over, has a pretty, I'm not going to say lavish, but a pretty nice lifestyle. I'll put it like that. And so he has emerged as the front runner, and I think as of yesterday, he actually did win the primary. I didn't follow up. I apologize, but you can do your homework and find out. But he emerged as the front runner, and interestingly enough, he out of Brooklyn, he won AOC's district. Representative Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez. That's why people say AOC, because saying that all that is just tongue twister. But he won that district, and so people are like, "Huh, wow, that was unexpected," and not really. I mean, think about it, folks. How many of you actually, in your heart of hearts, you just think about it. You ain't gotta tell anybody else, but just ask yourself: do you really support the idea that we need to get rid of police? We need to let criminals just do what they're doing because of poverty or because of their circumstances? And do we need to allow, stay-at-home orders and just get free money from the government? These are kind of things that make people say no. In the reality of it all, and you've seen the second and third order effects unfold literally before your eyes, both in media and in person. As you're walking down the street, you're subjugated to getting stabbed or punched in the face for no reason. And this has been happening in New York City. So they want to restore law and order there. And what better way, and who better than Eric Adams, who's been running a campaign on this? He's like, this is not the way, people. This is not what we need to be doing. But Maya Wiley, she was doubling down on it. She openly saying that she's gonna, defund the police and take their guns, and they're gonna walk the streets without protection. And you're wondering why the police forces are resigning en masse. It makes no sense, especially in a city that not only gets billions of dollars in police funding for a reason, because of the high crime rates, but you're telling cops that you're gonna go to work and you're not gonna be able to protect yourself, but you're gonna go out there and fight crime. What? Yeah. So, but like I was saying a minute ago, this speaks to the paradigm shift of what moderate, not so much progressive, but moderate Democrats are looking at. And I've always contended and said in the past that moderate Democrats tend to lean very conservative in a lot of areas, on a lot of issues, and they're kind of just, they kind of take on the fold of only reason why they're a Democrat is because of the blue collar feng shui and of doing business, versus white collar, which is more associated with being a Republican. And so you'll find those that's in the middle, and then people like Eric Adams here, who was once a Republican. And I don't know the circumstances of why he switched over to a Democrat. Maybe it was peer pressure. Maybe it was something about the party he didn't like. I don't know. But nonetheless, he, at one point in time in New York, being a police lieutenant, was a card-carrying member of the Republican Party. This is not uncommon, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a taboo thing, so to speak. And when we peel back the onion and look at how most minorities, let's remove the white population from the equation for a second here. When we look at the minority communities around the United States, a lot of them, when you boil down to kitchen table conversations, kitchen table issues, they tend to lean conservative. They tend to lean Republican on many issues. You're hard pressed to find somebody that says, yes, raise my taxes. You just, I'm sorry. These are general ideologies that are thrown out there that people get behind because of generational voting. But when you sit down with somebody one-on-one and you start going through these social issues that we're facing today, you will find that many of them lean towards conservative ideas. This is just simple facts. So this primary race, early voting primary race, yielded and confirmed that very theory. That many of them went into that ballot box with no peer pressure, no one looking over their shoulder, and they voted not only their conscience, but they voted exactly how they actually truly felt, based on a candidate that uttered the very things that they feel. He was able to connect and be relatable with realistic ideas. And we see a lot of candidates nowadays. They are all over the place in the wind, trying to get that niche of a population that will be best suited, or a larger voter population that may agree with them, although they themselves may not actually believe what it is that that group believes. But because they are the larger group, they sit there and do these things. And so that's what we see. Now, for me and my candidacy right now, I'm not doing that. I'm presenting what I feel, what I think, and either you're on board with that or you're not. It's that simple. Yeah, I got to sway a little bit here and there. Say, okay, I can see that point, or okay, yeah, I could change positions slightly on that because of this, that circumstance, based on new information. Whatever. That's normal. But to try to cater or pander to segments of populations just to get a vote, you find you box yourself in with not being able to deliver on those promises. And we saw this with the 2020 election, when the House Democrats barely won a majority, barely won, because they were all over the place on issues. And Republicans ended up picking up seats because they had a consistent message. So, but it is what it is. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
So, welcome back. The Reach One campaign. Folks, go to www.tecntv.com. TECNTV.com, the Exceptional Conservative Network. And pick out a show or watch all the shows. Do it for 1 week. That's all we ask. 1 week. And tell us what you think. Leave commentary. We have a chat room that you can log into from on the website there and watch the shows and provide commentary at the same time. Most of the time, we will respond if we have it up, or if I have it up. I don't usually have it up, but nonetheless, go to www.tecntv.com and like I said, pick a show or watch all of the shows that we air on there all day, every day. There's somebody, one of us, are on there doing something, and provide us your feedback. Let us know what we can improve on, what you like, what you don't like, and all that good stuff. Because we want to provide you quality programming and alternative media that you can turn to outside of lamestream, left stream media, and yeah. But in other news, the infrastructure plan that Biden's been touting since January, February timeframe, looking to spend $2 trillion on infrastructure, and that infrastructure was also inclusive with human infrastructure. I can't say I ever heard of human infrastructure prior to this, but okay. And that human infrastructure was referencing to child care, investing in child care, investing in elderly care, providing education resources to the Department of Education. Those are the things. But there was a bipartisan agreement with 10 senators out of the Senate that they ended up with a $973 billion billion infrastructure plan over 5 years with a $1.2 trillion spending package over 8 years if approved. And so you have to kind of get into the weeds of it because I didn't, because I know some of those things are going to change based on the text what I did read. I said, okay, that's going to probably some of that's going to probably change the numbers and the figures and everything once it gets over to the House, because the House is the purse. They control the money, so they're gonna strike through and say, we're not gonna spend X amount of dollars on that type of thing. So that's why I didn't get into the roots of all that. But nonetheless, this agreement is going to be focused on roads, bridges, transit, airports, and enhancing broadband and water and electric vehicles. Yeah. But so that's what they're looking to do. And I think this is I would not consider this a success for the Biden administration. I would say this is probably on par. And reason why I say that is because you touted during your campaign this infrastructure plan that would include, human infrastructure, and that's what people were looking towards. Most people are still waiting on their debt, their student loan debt, to be cleared out. That too was going to be part of this infrastructure plan, this human infrastructure plan, and that has not came to fruition. So, like I said, you're on par. But anyway, a friend of mine just sent me a text during the commercial break asking me a question about my thoughts on the Department of Justice suing the state of Georgia and whether or not they would have legal standing. Now, I would say on the surface, the answer is no, and here's why. The Department of Justice is looking to sue Georgia over their voting laws because it targets black people. There is no evidence, no proof that it targets black people. You're making a preposition that a requirement to have voter ID is only going to be applicable to black people. Now, if I was a judge, I would say, show me where is it that black people do not have an ID or cannot get access to an ID. You show me that, and I may side with you. But there's no evidence of that. And why is it, once again, ladies and gentlemen, once again, going back to why is it that black people are the only topic of discussion when it comes to this issue? You mean to tell me that Asians, Latinos, Pacific Islanders, you name it, every other minority group, especially in Georgia, because there's a lot of them, have better access to IDs than black people? I'm hard pressed. I'm hard pressed to believe that. And I done a show about this a while back already, discussing, how most black people, once again, you get them one on one, you have that conversation, you have that discussion. In reality, they're like, yeah, I got an ID. Look, see, I go down to vote. What's the problem? In reality, but going back to what John McWhorter was saying, we tend to jump on these bandwagons and we co-sign on things just to be popular or just to fit into a larger narrative that we don't believe in. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think the Justice Department will have any standing. I think they're doing this just to appease the crowd. More than likely, Stacey Abrams and company probably pressured or called the Justice Department and told them to look into this. It's already been debunked that the Georgia voter laws are not violating any constitutional laws, are not violating anybody's civil rights or access to voting or anything else of that nature that they're proclaiming. No one, I'm still failing to see that anyone has actually, that's an argument or that's a proponent against the Georgia voter laws. I have failed to see anyone actually explain by the text what is exactly the problem. They have not yet pointed out, okay, this particular law here is, this is the problem with that. No one has done that. They just see the journalized, quick bullets that don't speak to the specifics of anything and say, oh, no, that's racist, that's racist. Come on. So let's stop playing games. And then, like I said, I think the Justice Department is only doing it just to appease the crowd and saying that they're going to file a lawsuit, knowing that the lawsuit is going to get tossed. Knowing that. But, and also, before I forget, I was looking at the time, before I forget, I will caveat with also, because HR 1, the people's, what is it called? Is it the voting thing that Congress was trying to pass? The people's bill or something like that. Because that failed, and that essentially was to federalize the elections from the states, that in itself would have been unconstitutional had it not been blocked by the Republicans anyways. But more importantly, let's go back to the Constitution. Because election laws are I guess you say a federally, a state ordained thing to control and manage, the federal government cannot step in and override federal state laws surrounding elections, because the states have exclusive rights based on the Constitution to dictate how they run their elections. Unless if they go after Georgia, they would have to go after every state in the union based on those similar laws. So there's that. I think it's going to fail, folks. I'm going to shut up because I do have to run out the house here in the next 20 minutes. You can pick up my book, The New You, Now Equipped with Wisdom, on Amazon.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Gab, Instagram, MeWe, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those good platforms at RPRHAM, RPURHAM. And if you want to contribute to my campaign, go to www. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, that right there. www.rpermforus.com. I also take PayPal and Cashapp, $ uppercase R, PURHAM for US. Same thing on PayPal, RPerm for US. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show sometime or contribute to the show, you can do the same thing through those channels. Just annotate that in the little note section for your show, for your campaign, and we will apply the funding from there. Or if you want to advertise, you can do so. Let me know what you want to talk about, advertise, all that good stuff. We will work out some awesome deals for you, and we will see you all on Monday. Take care. God bless you all, and have a safe and fantastic, fantastic Friday and weekend. Ciao, ciao.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.